Today we're talking about another passenger, parasite. So that's we say parasitology. We're talking about the ology before, that's the study, that's aspect. So parasites, we separate with two different kind of form. One form is the single cell. Don't confuse with fungi. Fungi still have one single cell form. But fungi is different with parasites. Parasites usually bigger than fungi. Another kind of they have more cells. So that's they have two different kinds of parasites. They cause certainly different kind of illness. And more different cells parasites, sometimes we just call them worms and hemises. And parasites still cause the illness. So different kind of parasites, they may cause different illness. We are not go to too detail about its structures, but generally we have two different kind of form. One kind of form is single cell, another form is the more cells. Then we go to different parasites called illness. But we still can go to our video first to see some general information. Then we come back to discuss different.
Let's talking about parasitology today. Parasitology is the study of parasites, their hosts, and the relationship between them. As a biological discipline, the scope of parasitology is not determined by the organism or environment in question but by their way of life. Parasites occur in two distinct forms. Single-celled protozoa. Multicellular metazoa called helminths or worms. Protozoa, also protozoan, plural protozoans, is an informal term for a group of single-celled eukaryotes, either free-living or parasitic, which feed on organic matter such as other microorganisms or organic tissues and debris. Historically, protozoans were regarded as one-celled animals, because they often possess animal-like behaviors, such as motility and predation, and lack a cell wall, as found in plants and many algae. Although the traditional practice of grouping protozoa with animals is no longer considered valid, the term continues to be used in a loose way to describe single-celled protists, that is, eukaryotes that aren't animals, plants, or fungi, that feed by heterotrophy. A number of protozoan pathogens are human parasites, causing diseases such as malaria, Plasmodium, amoebiasis, giardiasis, toxoplasmosis, cryptosporidiosis, trichomoniasis, Chagas disease, leishmaniasis, African trypanosomiasis, sleeping sickness, acanthamoeba keratitis, and primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, naegleria. Parasitic worms, also known as helminths, are large macroparasites. Adults can generally be seen with the naked eye. Many are intestinal worms that are soil-transmitted and infect the gastrointestinal tract. Other parasitic worms such as schistosomes reside in blood vessels. Parasitic worms live in and feed in living hosts. They receive nourishment and protection while disrupting their host's ability to absorb nutrients. This can cause weakness and disease in the host. Parasitic worms cannot reproduce entirely within their host's body. They have a life cycle that includes some stages that need to take place outside of the host. Helminths are able to survive in their mammalian hosts for many years, due to their ability to manipulate the host's immune response by secreting immunomodulatory products. All parasitic worms produce eggs during reproduction. These eggs have a strong shell that protects them against a range of environmental conditions. The eggs can therefore survive in the environment for many months or years. Many of the worms referred to as helminths are intestinal parasites. An infection by a helminth is known as helminthiasis, helminth infection, or intestinal worm infection. There is a naming convention which applies to all helminths. The ending asis is added at the end of the name of the worm to denote the infection with that particular worm. For example, Ascaris is the name of a type of helminth, and Ascariasis is the name of the infection caused by that helminth. Entamoeba histolytica is an anaerobic parasitic amoebozoan, part of the genus Entamoeba. Predominantly infecting humans and other primates causing amoebiasis, Entamoeba histolytica is estimated to infect about 35 to 50 million people worldwide. The word histolysis literally means disintegration and dissolution of organic tissues. Transmission. The active, trophozoite, stage exists only in the host and in fresh loose feces. Cysts survive outside the host in water, in soils, and on foods. Especially under moist conditions on the latter. The infection can occur when a person puts anything into their mouth that has touched the feces of a person who is infected with Entamoeba histolytica, swallows something, such as water or food, that is contaminated with Entamoeba histolytica, or swallows Entamoeba histolytica cysts, eggs, picked up from contaminated surfaces or fingers. The cysts are readily killed by heat and by freezing temperatures, and survive for only a few months outside of the host. When cysts are swallowed, they cause infections by existing, releasing the trophozoite stage, in the digestive tract. Symptoms can include fulminating dysentery, bloody diarrhea, weight loss, fatigue, abdominal pain, and amoeboma. The amoeba can actually bore into the intestinal wall, causing lesions and intestinal symptoms, and it may reach the bloodstream. From there, it can reach different vital organs of the human body, usually the liver, but sometimes the lungs, brain, spleen, etc. A common outcome of this invasion of tissues is a liver abscess, which can be fatal if untreated. Ingested red blood cells are sometimes seen in the amoeba cell cytoplasm. Pathology. In the vast majority of cases, infection is asymptomatic and the carrier is unaware they are infected. However, in an estimated 10% of cases, Entamoeba histolytica causes disease. Once the trophozoites are excised in the terminal ileum region, they colonize the large bowel, remaining on the surface of the mucus layer and feeding on bacteria and food particles. Occasionally, and in response to unknown stimuli, trophozoites move through the mucus layer where they come in contact with the epithelial cell layer and start the pathological process. Entamoeba histolytica has a lectin that binds to galactose and N-acetylgalactosamine sugars on the surface of the epithelial cells. The lectin normally is used to bind bacteria for ingestion. The parasite has several enzymes such as pore-forming proteins, lipases, and cysteine proteases, which are normally used to digest bacteria in food vacuoles but which can cause lysis of the epithelial cells by inducing cellular necrosis and apoptosis when the trophozoite comes in contact with them and binds via the lectin. Enzymes released allow penetration into intestinal wall and blood vessels, sometimes onto liver and other organs. The trophozoites will then ingest these dead cells. This damage to the epithelial cell layer attracts human immune cells, and these in turn can be lyssed by the trophozoite, which releases the immune cell's own lytic enzymes into the surrounding tissue, creating a type of chain reaction and leading to tissue destruction. This destruction manifests itself in the form of an ulcer in the tissue, typically described as flask-shaped because of its appearance in transverse section. This tissue destruction can also involve blood vessels leading to bloody diarrhea, amoebic dysentery. Occasionally, trophozoites enter the bloodstream where they are transported typically to the liver via the portal system. In the liver, a similar pathological sequence ensues, leading to amoebic liver abscesses. The trophozoites can also end up in other organs, sometimes via the bloodstream, sometimes via liver abscess rupture or fistulas. In all locations, similar pathology can occur. Pathogenesis. Entamoeba histolytica causes tissue destruction which leads to clinical disease. Entamoeba histolytica, induced tissue damage by three main events: direct host cell death, inflammation, and parasite invasion. Diagnosis. Diagnosis is confirmed by microscopic examination for trophozoites or cysts in fresh or suitably preserved fecal specimens, smears of aspirates or scrapings obtained by proctoscopy, and aspirates of abscesses or other tissue specimen. A blood test is also available but is only recommended when a healthcare provider believes the infection may have spread beyond the intestine, gut, to some other organ of the body, such as the liver. However, this blood test may not be helpful in diagnosing current illness because the test can be positive if the patient has had amoebiasis in the past, even if they are not infected at present. Stool antigen detection and PCR are available for diagnosis, and are more sensitive and specific than microscopy. Treatment. There are a number of effective medications. Generally, several antibiotics are available to treat Entamoeba histolytica. The infected individual will be treated with only one antibiotic if the Entamoeba histolytica infection has not made the person sick, and most likely be prescribed with 2 antibiotics if the person has been feeling sick. Otherwise, below are other options for treatments. Intestinal infection, usually nitroimidazole derivatives, such as metronidazole, are used because they are highly effective against the trophozoite form of the amoeba. Since they have little effect on amoeba cysts, usually this treatment is followed by an agent, such as paromomycin or diloxanide furoate, that acts on the organism in the lumen. Liver abscess, in addition to targeting organisms in solid tissue, primarily with drugs like metronidazole and chloroquine, treatment of liver abscess must include agents that act in the lumen of the intestine, as in the preceding paragraph, to avoid reinvasion. Surgical drainage is usually not necessary except when rupture is imminent. People without symptoms. For people without symptoms, otherwise known as carriers, with no symptoms, non-endemic areas should be treated by paromomycin, and other treatments include diloxanide furoate and iodoquinol. There have been problems with the use of iodoquinol and iodochlorhydroxyquin, so their use is not recommended. Diloxanide furoate can also be used by mildly symptomatic persons who are just passing cysts. Thanks for watching.
So that's the general information. So we say parasites including 2 big parts. One part is single cells, another part is multiple cells. And each of the category, they have different kind of parasites. Let's go to intestine, single cells parasites first. So it's pretty commonly we have a cortisol kind of parasite. They cause the dysentery in the intestine. So these illness, usually we call amoeba kind of dysentery. Yeah, like dysentery can cause by different pathogens. But these one is especially caused by this kind of parasites we call amoeba. So these amoeba also cause especially the tissues severe kind of injury or damage. And they also can cause liver upset. So that's the main issue caused by these kind of parasites. We call it amoeba. So the parasites, most parasites, basically they have 2 stages. So one stage is kind of adults of the parasite. Another stage is kind of egg of system of the parasite. So usually they have 2 stages. One is like a maturity one or adult. Another one is like the egg. And they cause the different problems. So we say the amoeba, the parasite. Usually we can find in the intestine. yeah, inside the intestine. And the yearly problems, they cause the diarrhea or dysentery. So the egg of cyst, yeah. So usually they passing through the stool, and then they go to some salt or water, and some other people got contaminated and then cause the illness. So that's basically we have two stages for parasites. And usually the cyst or egg, they have a cover, pretty protected, with a highly resistant, means pretty good protected, like eggs inside and a thick cover. So basically, it's protected. Yeah, protected. Is usually environment is not cured, but if we boil in the water, yeah, if they are in the water, if we boil in the water, it will be cured. So, but not fully cured by the chemical. That usually we go to disinfection of the water. So that's especially in this kind of air, this kind of parasites more popular. Try drink boiling water. Try drink boiling water, and also filter the water. Filter the water. Usually will be safety to drink. So the picture here show us like people got contaminated because they drinking some like water, they have some parasites inside, and most case they got digestive system and got infection in the intestine. Mainly happens in the large intestine, because the large intestine some ulcers in there, and the eggs, yeah, and the eggs from large intestine and from stool and then release and go to our environment. Go to our environment.
Dr. Chip,
Yeah.
is that binary fission? It multiplies by binary fission?
Sorry?
At the bottom, my Spanish is kind of poor. Does that say that it multiplies by binary fission?
I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure that's English or maybe that's the French here.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay, it might be that too. All right, thank you.
I tried to find a picture for English, but it looks like no English one, so looks like some words here. It looks like French.
Oh no, I can get the gist of it for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny picture here. It is funny picture here. Yeah. So that's we say commonly the circle, and some eggs relieve some intestine, and then got to contaminate with other people. But also sometimes the parasites they may travel. They may from intestine travel to the liver and cause the liver infection. So liver infection they cause the upset, means kind of locally infection, but upset can happen multiple places. And they also possible cause the lung infection, cause lung upset also. Because these kind of parasites, they truly can eat the tissues, cause some tissues also kind of changing superficially, like in the large intestine, and cause the big damage the tissue locally, cause the upsize. So that's also happens. Yeah. So this picture, I didn't find a suitable picture. So look like a lot of bunch words in here, but that's just generally the parasite living rate. So with the acute infection in the intestine for amoeba kind of parasites, it causes the dysentery. So sometimes we say dysentery, sometimes we talking about diarrhea. Dysentery truly more severe than diarrhea. Diarrhea usually we're just talking about the people losing stool, but they will not have blood inside usually, and not have some mucus inside. So that kind of losing stool we call diarrhea. But if blood inside and some mucus inside, that kind of diarrhea we call dysentery. So that means dysentery is much more severe compared with diarrhea. And the other symptoms, they usually happens in large intestine. So lower abdominal area, discomfortable or maybe painful. They usually happens like in the connected small intestine and the large intestine connected part. So that's usually lower part of abdominal cavity. And people urging to go to bowel movement. After bowel movement, they still feel like totally go. So that's kind of feeling, uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it's also burning sensation on the arms. So that's acute amoeba kind of dysentery. Also fever. Also some kind of white blood cell number increased. So that's library test usually. And people also can develop chronic amoeba kind of diarrhea or dysentery. So like people acute situation passing and then changing to chronic situation. So symptoms still like losing stool, but not that big amount of blood inside, or even sometimes you hard to find the blood. And occasionally still have mucus, but kind of like chronic diarrhea. And because parasites inside, people losing body weight, they still eating like the same amount, but their body weight is losing. And people pretty sad, pretty tired, fatigue. So that's chronic one. Sometimes people got infected, but they may don't have special kind of symptoms. They may just carry these parasites, and the eggs will come in or show up in their stool. So means they can transmit to other people. So that's we have acute kind of situation, we have chronic situation. We even have some people, they got infections, but not show up for symptoms. So we say these kind of parasites mainly happens in large intestine, cause some ulcers in large intestine because they eating some dead tissues there, and also trigger or immunity systems reactions, like the video will show that. And also possible they travel to the liver. When they go to the liver, they cause the liver painful. So physical location of the liver, right side, upper abdominal area. So that's locally painful. And weight loss. Because parasites go to inside the body, so that they take some nutritions from the people eating, and then people don't have enough nutrition. Don't have enough nutrition means they don't have nutrition to build up the body, like the protein need. So their body weight loss. And infections can trigger our body reactions for fever. We say fever is kind of a body protected way, and also can cause enlarging the liver. We say the liver, people may feel painful in right upper quadrant area, and also when other people touching, the patient will feel some tender in it. And we say we have two lobes of the liver. Left side is a little bit smaller, right side is much bigger. So if the abscess happens in the right side of the liver, and above it is our diaphragm. So some abscess happens in here and getting bigger and bigger, then they also damage the diaphragm. Above the diaphragm is our lung. So truly they can from there and then cause the lung abscess. It's not that usually travel by the blood circulation. It's kind of large intestine close to the liver and then travel to the liver and from the liver travel to the lung. So that's they say usually it happens. And that's the most case. Yeah, that's the most case coming from intestine, and then to the liver, and then to the lung. But truly, some situations, liver abscess, we just find the liver abscess coming from the patient, and all the symptoms show up, like upper abdominal pain and locally enlarged liver. But when we checking, we didn't find the intestine issue. So that's still possible happen. Or even sometimes intestine have some problem there, but it's not that easily funded. Yeah, not funding out. Laboratory diagnosis. So laboratory diagnosis, truly we try to find why is the parasite, why is the egg coming from the stool. Whatever we find, that we can make a diagnosis. So still use microscope. And the treatment. So for the parasites, we have some medication we can treat. Yeah, still kind of category kind of medication. Truly we can kill the parasites. And if we use medication, get infected treated, like even happens in the liver upside. Usually these two kind of medication is effective to cure it. We are not need to do surgery or maybe put a tube there and like a pus coming out. Usually it's not necessary. But a severe case maybe still need to go to surgery. Prevention. So basically, when we're talking about prevention, mainly we're talking about how to cut off its transmission way. So we say the transmission way for these kind of parasites is coming from the mouth. Yeah, coming from the mouth, like drink some contaminated water or the food contaminated, and then they go to intestine, and from intestine they release from the stool, and then they go to the salt, or maybe go to the water, and even sometimes people go to washroom, go to pee, and then they didn't washing their hand properly, and then they handle some food, and the food eaten by the other people maybe got infection. So that's basically we're talking about we need good personal hygiene, especially for hand washing, for like oral and stool kind of transmission way. So these kind of illness, hand washing is more important. Touching causes the transmission. So after go to pee, wash your hand. After you prepare your food, you wash your hand. And before prepare food and before eating food, washing hand. So that's mainly prevention. Then we go to other illness. Still belong to protozoa. We talking about the protozoa. These kind of parasite is a single cell. Yes, still single cell parasite. So these parasites, they are pretty easily cause the vaginal air infection. This one is kind of common illness for female women. Got the vaginal infections in it. So this transmission way by sex activity or touching. but usually cause the illness happens mainly in the female. So female genital area is like mostly is more moistening and easy passenger living there and growing there. So that's mainly happens in the female. But for the male, still possible. It's not that common, but still possible. Happens in the post area. So these illnesses only happens in the humans. They are not happens in the animals. That's just human and human transmission kind of illness. So we say that's popular kind of illness. Popular kind of illness. And usually cause the patient's symptoms. Mainly is kind of itchy and local area. And still have a lot of people, they got infection. They may not severe kind of symptoms or maybe no symptoms show up. Clinically, we say mainly happens in a woman and cause the symptoms, itchy local area and burning sensation in the local area, and also discharging. The discharging usually is watery kind of discharging, have very bad smell, and even have green color. So that's we say mainly clinical symptoms. If they happens in the men, usually no symptoms show up, but they are able to transmit to their sex partner. Still have some patients, men patients, about 10%, they may cause the infections in the urination tract, lower urination tract. Clinical diagnosis. So clinical diagnosis, we still try to find the kind of parasite. We can take some, take some discharging from vagina area for female, and then we still try to find that parasite inside with microscope. So basically, under the microscope, they have special kind of movement in there. So that's the way we find this kind of parasite. So we see the parasite finding way is still different with bacteria. So just the bacteria, especially we're talking about gram-negative. That's especially for bacteria. It's not working for virus, not working for fungi, not working for parasites. But truly, laboratory, we can especially find a special kind of microorganism. They may show up something special. We just try to find something special. Then they identify that's what kind of special parasite in there. So that's usually. We don't have special kind of blood test for this kind of parasite. But in some chemical check we can do for this kind of parasites. Treatment. We still use the same medication, but if we try to treat these illnesses, pay attention. We need to treat both the sex partner, because one patient has this illness, they are pretty easily transmitted to others. Even some people don't have symptoms. So, like if we only treat one person, and even you cure it, and later on still can got infection again. So that's we say if we treat this illness, we usually treat both partners. And we find the pH levels is pretty relationship with this passenger infection parasites. Low levels. That's the normally we keep the low level pH in the vagina area. And we still keep low levels. That usually will help to kill these kind of parasites, because they need a high level of the pH and for reproduction. And other protections to separate contaminate in there. No vaccine available. So that's the prevention way. Mainly we keep a healthy kind of sex activity and use the condoms. So that's we finish two kind of protozoan. That's single cell parasites. Then we still go to another one. Still single cell parasite. Another kind of protozoan. These kind of protozoan, they especially go to blood and go to the tissues. And I believe these illnesses you are pretty familiar. You may not familiar these kind of parasites, but you will familiar with the illness, malaria. So malaria is caused by, we're talking about a special kind of protozoan. Thus, we gave it a special name. They still have different kinds. Like in different countries, different area. But they cause the clinical symptoms pretty similar. And cause the infections and cause people die also. Malaria is one of the most commonly infected by this category of the parasites. So that's the malaria, the parasites, the transmission way. Look like a pretty complicated here. But generally say, they still have two circles. They transmit usually by mosquitoes. They carry some parasites, and then they beating the human being. And after they beating the human beings, they follow the blood and transmission go to inside the body. And then they may go to beating others and go to some egg transmission outside. And when they go to the human bodies, they can go to the liver cells. They can go to liver cells, cause liver issue, and infected liver cells. And they also go to blood circulation. In the liver, they maybe like go to reproduction there and release more and go to blood circulation. And still like if the mosquito eating the patient, they make a transmission to others. So pretty complicated transmission ways. So it's a mainly transmission way, mosquito bit, mosquito bit. But also possible, the transmission through the plasma. That means some people got pregnancy and then they bit by mosquito. The mom got the illness. It's possible transmit to the infant. So that's another transmission way. And also possible transmission by blood. So like we do blood transfusions. And also people like use same injection needles, got injection drugs. So basically blood transmission. Yeah, basically blood transmission. Whatever mosquito bit or blood transmission. So mostly we find malaria. The pathogen in malaria basically in red blood cell, and it's kind of dead red blood cell. And they follow blood circulation, can go to the skin and go to skin getting bigger. So that's another clinical signs of malaria. Malaria is another popular illness. Like every year, many people die with this illness. It's not commonly happening here, but like mostly Arctic and South American area. So that's possible. Especially people go to that area in summertime. Must be careful. To travel, living or travel go to that area. Need to very be careful. And also some people got some like infections, but they just hiding. Even after 3 years, they still possible got the illness. Clinical symptoms. So basically, fever and chill, and then stop, like body temperature we talked about, fever, couple days, and then go to normal, and then got another time fever, another couple days, and then go to normal, couple days. So that kind of fever, yeah. alternatively happens when people got fever. They reach out. It's usually high fever. Other symptoms: headache. Patient same time maybe headache, body ache, muscle painful, joints painful. So usually happens about 2 weeks after mosquito bit. Mosquito bit, like usually locally, sometimes we still can got some local painful and some itchiness, or even a little bit rash in there. But if the mosquito not carry the passenger, like after a couple of days, it's totally recovered. But if the mosquito carry the passenger, and then they beat the patient, like a local, no symptoms already after 2 weeks, but the patient suddenly fever chill, is much recovered, maybe got the infection. So usually symptoms, fever first. Fever first. So if people special go to that area and bitten by mosquito, it's truly need to be careful. It's high fever. We say over 39 degrees is high fever already. Over 40 degrees is pretty high fever. But the patient's fever can reach to 41 degrees and the same time chill. Other symptoms possible: nausea, vomiting, and also abdominal pain. And fever causes sweating. And then we're talking about then the body temperature can decrease to normal. After a few days, that fever, sweating again. And we say also can cause enlarging the spleen and enlarging the liver. So that's also the happens. If you go to blood test, red blood cell decrease. That's we say anemia. The diagnosis. So we specially take the blood, go to under the microscope, and find that kind of pattern. So that's the mainly way we go to laboratory diagnosis. Certainly, we compare with the clinical symptoms, and also patients have the history, like travel to special kind of country and bit by mosquitoes, and then they got the symptoms. They will come back together. We have medication to treat. Malaria. And for TCM herbs, we have a herb we call 青蒿. That's a TCM herb. A famous TCM doctor, they from 青蒿 take some ingredients inside of 青蒿, we call 青蒿素. This means ingredients coming from 青蒿. And truly found is effective against malaria. So that's truly malaria. We have medication to treat. Prevention. The best prevention, not travel to that area, and try to prevent not bit by mosquitoes. we can use some like a cream and to protect it and go to that area, use the window screen. So by the way, not beaten by mosquito, not go to that special kind of area. And also mosquito often coming in the early morning and in the evening. So basically, especially like not go outside in the early morning or in the night. So that's basically the prevention way. We don't have special kind of vaccine. So that's we're talking about the illness malaria. So look like we're talking about a few illness. All of these caused by single cells of the parasite. They can go to different parts of the body, cause different kinds of illness. Then we move into another part. So truly we go to bigger parasites. So the parasites composed by the multiple cells and the adults of this kind of parasite. Usually we can see with our like eyes. Yeah. We're talking about the adults of the parasite. But still the parasite, they still producing the eggs. Eggs maybe a little bit smaller, but the adults of the parasite. So the first one, we're talking about fauna solium. These parasites, they cause two illnesses. One illness is caused by the adult. One illness is caused by the egg. That's the same illness. The same parasite caused the two illnesses. So that's still kind of a circle here. Look like the parasites. Usually they will have two circles. They will have two hospitals. The circle here means they transmit, still from the oral to or inside the body when they go to intestine, and then the parasite can release or eggs can release to outside, to the source outside, and sometimes they also transmit to other animals. So that's the like the adults here. The adult parasite is pretty long, and that looks like the head here, that's the side part, So we say these parasites cause two different kinds of illness. The adult parasites, they will attach in intestinal wall and cause some injury in the intestinal wall. So basically, they can cause some ulcers in the intestine. The eggs or small parasites, they can travel to other parts of the body. So they can travel to the brain and then cause the issue happens in the brain. The younger one. The younger one not truly causing infections, but when they died, they still occupied some space. They still damage some tissue. So that's basically we're talking about different stage. So the transmission way, we say from face to the oral kind of transmission way. They usually can infection, not only for the humans, can infection from animals. And we're talking about especially for pigs. So we know we're eating pork. Some like the pig infections were the parasite, and some eggs can go to the pig's muscles. That's we talking about the pork we eat. So they form a pretty small salt in there. So if people eating this kind of pork, the meat, so that truly can cause the infection. So always cooking, always cooking. Don't eat the raw one. But still look like luckily we don't have too many these kind of parasites in the country here. But still, prevention, still be careful. So that's basically we're talking about. So clinical symptoms. Usually people can get these parasite infections would be no symptoms. Or maybe just people just let people appetite didn't pay attention, or maybe diarrhea people didn't pay attention. And truly these parasites sometimes they look like some part connected with some part, and sometimes they broken and they falling down to the stool. Sometimes people can find it and know that kind of parasite infection. And if the younger parasites go to the brain, can cause a headache and vomiting, even sometimes seizure, like kind of muscle spasm. And they also possible go to the eye, and cause the people losing some vision. And also they can like sometimes cause we can see some nodules under the skin. That may be the younger parasites or even the egg can go to it. And also can go to the muscles. They can travel. Laboratory test, So we still try to find the parasite in the stool. So these one truly we can see with our naked eye, and certainly combination with clinical symptoms. Treatment. We have special kind of medication can treat it. But if the patient cause a very severe kind of problem locally, like big ulcers in the intestine, or maybe cause some occupied circulation in the brain, maybe we need a surgery to remove it. Otherwise, we still use the medication. Preventing. We're talking about it usually transmitted by the pig to the people. So always cook it. And we're still talking about washing hands before you prepare food and before you eating. And also try not to contaminate. Like if we especially know some people got infected. Still no vaccine. Then we're talking about another parasite in our intestine. Another one. So these one still mainly go to infections in the intestines. So that's usually. And the clinical symptoms for this one. Itchiness around the arm's area. So that's the pretty common illness. And pretty commonly happens in the case. So basically, this kind of itchiness is allergy kind of reaction, like some parasites in there, and then cause some itchiness in there. So like if you find some case always spreading around the arms area, maybe they got this parasite infection. And then the scratching local area, and then maybe eating something, so maybe got second infection, and also it caused second bacterial infection. So still transmission way from the stool to the mouth, and then go to intestine. The adults of the parasite living in the intestine, but they still can relieve some ache. Children is more commonly illegal infection under 12 years old. And the laboratory test, we still try to find, either eggs, or the parasite. But maybe for these parasites, eggs is not be easily to find it, because the parasites actually go to outside, like a local around the in air, to producing the eggs there. So we are pretty commonly like around the arms air, the skin air, and then we take a sample there. We use kind of special kind of technique, and take a sample there, and then we can find under the microscope. So similarly. So that's basically if we find some children always scratching around the eye area, we can especially go to test to find these parasites. Usually we are not find the egg in the food. We only find the egg in the around the arm area and the skin. Audios sometimes can find in the food, but not the egg. So parasite infections usually they don't have blood type. There are no antibodies especially for these kind of parasites. So treatment. We have medication. Can treat kill the adults of the parasites, but basically not effective, not kill the eggs. So that means patients also have second infection if the eggs not be killed. Yeah, we only kill the adults. So that's the eggs still can development to the adults later. When they go up for adults, we still can kill it. So that's why we go to second treatment, yeah, which is waiting the eggs getting bigger and to the adult. So that's then we kill it again. Like the first time, we have both adult and the egg. We use medication, kill the adult. And then the egg, after 2 weeks, they to the adult. But maybe they are not that bigger to producing more eggs yet. Then we kill it. Yeah, then we kill it. So that's the way we treat these problems. And quarantine. Unfortunately, we still no vaccine, no special kind of quarantine. So still washing the hand, still washing the hand before prepare food, after go to washroom, before eating food. So that's the prevention way, preventing a lot of the illness, not only for this one. So that's our parasite part. Any questions?